Alright, this is part 2 of my look at the premiere episode of Voyager. Links to the first part are in the little eye circle, or in the description, or wherever YouTube lets us put things in the future after they remove features without telling you their creators. I love Neelix. I know he grates on people, but I think a lot of the issue is the writers failed to flesh him out as much as everyone else in these early episodes. The Kes relationship was the worst part, but we'll talk about that later. The actor who played him, Ethan Phillips, may be the only person to have roles in 4 Trek franchises: TNG, Enterprise, Voyager, and the Trek films. If he had appeared in DS9, he would have played in every Trek franchise of the time. Way to drop the ball, UPN. This sideways glance we see Tom giving Tuvok is the same glance that we saw him giving just a minute before, just from a different angle.
Sounds as though you've heard this story before.
Sadly, yes. Thousands of times. Well, hundreds of times. Maybe 50 times.
I love this momentary smirk from Janeway. She would have believed him if he had left it 1,000 times, or at least understood it as an exaggeration to prove a point. But the fact that he keeps correcting himself makes him endearing to her. This first episode is better at establishing personality traits and relationships with subtle moments like this than newer shows accomplish over seasons.
There's really very little that you could offer me. Unless, of course, you had water.
Look, I know we needed something to create conflict between Voyager and the Kazon, and something for the caretaker to be feeling guilty over, but having that be water? I'm not ready for this yet. We'll talk about this later.
Good. We'll beam you over and tow your ship into our shuttle bay.
Beam?
It's quite harmless. May we?
Janeway is a dirty, rotten liar. Transporters create a duplicate of yourself and then disintegrate the original. There's nothing harmless about them. The duplicate just doesn't have the memories of the original as his atoms are broken down into nothingness.
I am Vulcan.
Neelix. Good to meet you.
Should I count Neelix and Tuvok as a bromance? Screw it, I'm counting it.
I suggest we proceed to your quarters. Perhaps you would care for a bath.
A what?
I'm convinced Neelix is playing the dumb traitor in this scene just so he can rescue Kes later on. This punk grew up on a planet with lots of water. There's no way he didn't know what a bath was.
You mean you were trying to capture us?
Yeah. Consider yourself captured. Oh, I know I have a phaser here somewhere.
Have I mentioned that Garrett Wang is a treasure yet? I love this line and that this sets up the relationship for Harry and B'Elanna for the rest of the series.
Hey, what's that going to accomplish? Do you want them to sedate you again?
You're right, Starfleet.
It's a Klingon half of me. It's hard to control it sometimes.
Torres hates her Klingon half. Literally every episode that focuses on her will touch on this, with, I don't know, maybe the exception of the episode called Death Wish. We'll find out in a couple seasons. I just realized they never named the Ocampan doctor. Voyager had a really hard time with giving doctors names for some reason.
The caretaker has sent you to us. As long as you are not violent, you are free to leave your quarters.
What's wrong with us? What are these things?
We really don't know.
This is one of the areas that I think the pilot failed at. If they had skipped the second scene on the array, we could have had a growing mystery about Harry and B'Elanna being pulled aside because of some sickness. Instead, we already know the caretaker was looking for something. It would have been a better reveal to hold us off till the end.
Our ancient journals tell us he opened a deep chasm in the ground and led our ancestors to this place. Since then, he has provided for all our needs.
Oh my goodness! Get the message already! Masks with holes do nothing! And look at this Biden lookalike! He doesn't even have it covering his mouth! Get with the times, man!
Does the caretaker provide your meals, too?
In fact, he does. It may not offer the exotic taste some of our younger people crave these days, but it meets our needs.
This would have been a great episode to explore the idea of how a society where the government meets all the basic needs of the citizenry would stagnate. But you can't have everything, I suppose.
Is this how the caretaker communicates with you?
He never communicates directly. We try to interpret his wishes as best we can.
Colts!
From time to time, he asks us to care for people with this disease. It's the least we can do.
There have been others? Where are they?
I'm afraid the others did not recover.
Okay, there isn't a better spot to talk about this, so let's do this here. It makes no sense for just B'Elanna and Harry to have been taken. The caretaker is desperate. We would see at least one from every race being sampled. I mean, I can understand only taking the most compatible from any one race, but he's run out of options, and going for the Hail Mary. That Bolian should be here, Seska should be here. Based on this shot, the Maquis Marauder is about a quarter the size of Voyager. That might come up later.
Sir.
I hope you enjoyed it, because that's the last time Tuvok will ever refer to Neelix as Sir. Huh, this might be the only bathtub I have ever seen in all of Star Trek. There was that mud hot tub on TNG, but technically that was a holodeck. Usually there's just a sonic shower.
Do you believe our people might be at this location?
It's not impossible. Maybe. Perhaps not.
Neelix just can't help but tell the truth. Of course, the best part is he's only doing this so they won't catch his bigger lie.
Do these, replicators make clothing as well?
Yes.
Will it make me a uniform like yours?
No. It most certainly will not.
Ha! Joke's on you, Tuvok! Neelix will be wearing that gold uniform 3 times! These surface shots of Ocampa were filmed at the El Mirage Dry Lake Bed, which was also where they shot the scenes from Final Mission where Jean-Luc Picard and Wesley Crusher had crash-landed on that desert planet. Man, even the transport buffer Janeway has her hands on her hips.
My friends, it's good to see you again.
I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't until a Lower Deck episode that I realized the Kazon didn't have rocks for hair.
Jabin! My old friend! I have water to replace all that I borrowed.
Jabin does the sniff test, but he should have known that you can't detect iocane powder by sniffing.
You'd be wasting your time. I've used every method of persuasion I know to get her to help us. She won't.
Apparently, his every method of persuasion is just hitting people. In a minute, Janeway asks, and she immediately helps her. Way to drop the ball, Jabin. That's right, Neelix is directly responsible for all the troubles Voyager has with the Kazon and Seska for the next 1.5 years, plus some time travel episodes. I'm not saying that all the hate for Neelix is unjustified.
My dearest, didn't I promise I'd save you?
Alright, let's talk about Neelix's and Kess's relationship here. The Ocampa only lived for 9 years and had their kids between the 4th and 5th year. So basically, 1 year for an Ocampan is equal to about 1 decade for humans, and the vast majority of the Ocampans would never meet a single grandparent. At the beginning of Season 2, Kes has her 2nd birthday, so she's basically 13 or 14 years old. Best case scenario at the start of this season. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but everything about Kes and her relationship with Neelix on a romantic level is hot garbage. They should have made Neelix just a tiny bit older and had him be a father figure from the get-go instead of a romantic lover. Minus the lackluster episode Elogium, nothing would have had to been changed between Neelix and Kes, and it would have made Neelix's character 100% less creepy, work better, and Kes's character would have made a lot more sense as well. I love that while Janeway is being horrified that she just fell into a war with the species, Tom is in the background going, yeah, I'd probably do the same.
Look, I'm sure Captain Janeway is doing everything she can to find us.
What makes you think any of them are still alive?
She has a point. They were subject to torture and medical experience, then dumped here. There's no reason to believe anyone else is alive.
Are you in pain? Are you watching us? I thought we weren't supposed to be your prisoners.
You literally live in a society where you wear tracking and communication devices on you at all time, and you're complaining about being watched? Huh. That sentence is hitting me a little too close to home for some reason. Siri, what's the current weather?
Caretaker's been behaving strangely for the past several months. Abducting people, increasing the power supply. He's tripled the energy he sends us. They say we have enough stored now to run the city for 5 years.
Look, I'm not going to harp on this anymore, but that second scene with the caretaker really ruins any suspense this scene would have had otherwise. How did the editors not notice this? Now, I don't claim to be a Starship pilot, but personally, I'd opt for an orbit that didn't have me constantly crossing the path of a ball of energy that could cross a solar system and still not have dissipated.
This is a sick bay, not a conference room. Visiting hours are over. Everyone except my patient is to leave immediately.
Computer, end medical holographic program.
The doctor's eye when Janeway says this will crack me up every time. Also, they did an amazing job with the practical effect of whatever tool it was the doctor was holding falling after the hologram was deactivated.
I never should have gone to the surface. I'm too curious. I'm told it's my worst failing.
Your worst quality is actually something endearing, you say? Is your name Kes or Mary Sue?
Kes can tell you where to go. But now that she's free, we're leaving this system together.
Neelix, these people rescued me.
I rescued you.
This is what I mean by Neelix putting up an act at first. We see a lot of that optimist, happy side of him throughout the series, but as soon as Kes is rescued, bam! He changes his entire disposition.
Have the transporter room begin a sweep for any breaches we might be able to beam through.
Captain, the pulses from the array continue to accelerate.
I know they just said there might be a hole in the barrier large enough to beam through, but that was still a hard cut to jump straight to them having not only beamed through the barrier, but beamed to one of the secret gardens. How is there a dark-skinned Ocampan when they have spent 500 generations living underground protected from any form of solar radiation?
Cass,
Hello, Dagon.
we thought we'd never see you again.
Neelix is remarkably chill considering Kes is so affectionately caressing another man's hands. So get those hands off your hips, Janeway. Janeway's hands moved so fast they were magically on her hips by the time the camera angle changed.
I can't believe that our caretaker would forbid us to open our eyes and see the sky. Come with me, we'll find your people.
Yeah, girl power! Dude, it's been like 5 steps. You've got to have a little more stamina than that.
I believe that the caretaker is dying.
Explain.
First, he increases the energy supply to provide the city with a surplus to last at least 5 years. Then he seals the conduits. The logical conclusion is that he does not intend to continue his role as caretaker.
Tuvok Holmes strikes again. Maybe he's just tired of being the caretaker. Maybe he wants to go on vacation. Maybe he's drunk. There's a lot of options to explore before he's dying. Tuvok's right, of course, though. Also, all these shots of the Ocampan City were filmed at the Los Angeles Convention Center.
I believe the debt that can never be repaid is very likely a debt to them. In addition, there were his frequent references to running out of time.
Okay. Without the second caretaker scene, Tuvok wouldn't be able to make this connection about a debt that could not be repaid. But here's the thing. It's an unnecessary connection. We don't need the reveal right now. It's still 20 minutes before the show is over. Let them figure it out at the last meeting already.
3 to beam up.
Stand by. Captain, I can't get a lock on you. The weapons fire from the array has irradiated the planet's crust.
Of course, there has to be a reason that the transporters can't work. I'm just glad there's a technical reason beyond quantum interference.
I see them.
Is Harry waving? Way to live on the wild side, Paris. You could have brought the whole tunnel down, killing everyone.
Neelix, help me with Tuvok.
I'll get you Chakotay.
Dang! Did you see how quickly Janeway bounced? She's clearly okay with Tom and Chakotay falling to their deaths.
But on the other hand, if I save your butt, your life belongs to me. Isn't that some kind of Indian custom?
That's racist.
Isn't there some Indian trick where you can turn yourself into a bird and fly us out of here?
That is also racist. Of course, what is really racist is the fact that the actor who plays Chakotay isn't at all Native American. Despite having just been beamed back from the surface, somehow B'Elanna and Harry Kim are back into their uniforms. Are their ships just set on autopilot? If I didn't know better, I might say that's the exact same rendering from earlier in the episode. Too rarely do you see any ships in Star Trek making use of the fact that they're not jet fighters. I love the fact that the Kazon ships are coming in from a different plane than Voyager. Janeway has her hands on her hips again. You know, seeing the inside of this Maquis ship again, I have to say it looks almost identical to the runabouts from DS9, just with some different place cards in the viewing areas.
You know what to do.
You know how you can tell when an episode has been tightly written for the most part? She doesn't have to waste time telling Tuvok what to do for our benefit. That's how. I bet the tricorders and phasers fell out of their pockets every time they leaned over in real life.
But in a few years, when the Ocampa's energy runs out, it won't matter. They'll be forced to come to the surface, and they won't be able to survive.
That sentence shows just how stupid the caretaker is. He knows he's only giving them a few more years to survive. At any point in the past 500 generations, that would be around 2,000 years for the Ocampa, the caretaker could have taken them to literally any other M-class planet in the galaxy, far from danger. Instead, he keeps them where it is the most dangerous for them to be.
We're explorers from another galaxy. But we had no idea that our technology would be so destructive to their atmosphere.
I like the reveal that they're from a completely other galaxy. Voyager is on the very edge of the Milky Way galaxy. Visitors that came into our galaxy where things operated differently would have messed things up almost immediately. Exactly like what we see here. Did you see that? Chakotay pulled a holo maneuver.
The self-destruct program has been damaged.
Oh no, the Kazon ship hit the exact part of the station that disabled the holograms and the self-destruction program? What are the odds?
Captain, any action we take to protect the Okapa would affect the balance of power in this system. The Prime Directive would seem to apply.
I heard that Winrich Colby, the director for this episode, was crazy impressed with this episode's exploration of the Prime Directive, stating that, for the first time in the history of Star Trek, we are really entering the gray area of the Prime Directive. I have to disagree. From the first episode, the only reason the Prime Directive has ever been mentioned was to examine the gray areas and unforeseen consequences. Also, I don't think the Prime Directive applies at all at this moment. They've already affected the power struggle of the sector. They're dealing with warp-capable civilizations. They were drugged here against their will. Maybe Tuvok meant Starfleet doesn't permit interfering with cultures and wars of non-Federation entities, but that's not the Prime Directive.
We never asked to be involved, Tuvok. But we are. We are.
I give you the face of a man who just realized he's not going to see his wife for a long, long time.
I'm calling to warn you to move your vessels to a safe distance. I intend to destroy the array.
Knowing what we do of Janeway and her psychological issues about losing crew members, it doesn't make any sense for her to be willing to sentence everyone aboard Voyager to the nomadic life. It would make sense for the Maquis to see the similarities between the Ocampa and the Kazon, and the Maquis and the Cardassians. Chakotay should be the one leading this charge. This is when he should be sacrificing his ship.
Fire.
I really like how you're given a moment to process the destruction of the array before the story continues. Did Janeway's hair get more red again?
I've entered into the ship's log on this date that I'm granting a field commission of lieutenant to Thomas Eugene Paris.
Way to go, Tom. This moment kept Harry and Ensign for 7 years.
Well, you see, that's what we wanted to discuss. We'd like to go with you.
I'm sorry. This isn't a passenger ship.
Of course not. We won't be passengers.
We'd be valuable colleagues.
I would have liked to see a lot more of this. Voyager had a crew complement of 141 people, and we know at least 6 people died in this episode. The Maquis Raider was a quarter of the size and designed for quick hit and runs. In fact, according to Eaglemoss, it should have a crew complement of 30 people, but let's be generous and say 50 people were on board. That means Voyager should now have 185 people. Keep that number in mind. It's small and it's going to get smaller. Janeway would have desperately needed a revolving door of mercenaries filling out various roles to keep Voyager running. Having people come in and leave like Neelix and Kes should have been happening in the background at least a lot.
It will be my job to anticipate your needs before you know you have them. And I anticipate your first need will be me.
Still, I like Janeway's acceptance of them. You can tell she's really touched. She's stranded on the wrong side of the galaxy, at war with a race of people she just met, because of Neelix, and feels relieved to have made an ally.
We have no idea of the dangers we're going to face.
Dude, shoulder width is all you need to keep your feet apart at. Is that just how you stand in general?
But one thing is clear. Both crews are going to have to work together if we're to survive.
Wow. Can you imagine a troop of Marines having to absorb a terrorist cell to make it across dangerous territories? There'd be a ton of conflict. I really look forward to seeing that happen over the next few seasons until they fully merge.
To seek out new worlds and explore space. But our primary goal is clear.
I love how the classic Star Trek theme plays right after Janeway says to seek out new worlds and explore strange space.
Even at maximum speeds, it would take 75 years to reach the Federation.
75 years? In QQ, the Enterprise was 7,000 light years away from the nearest Federation outpost, and it would have only taken them a little under 3 years. Voyager can keep a cruising speed greater than the Enterprise's maximum non-emergency speed. This should be a 30-year journey, not a 75-year journey. Alright, Caretaker Part 1 and 2. What a kickoff to the series. It's certainly not the worst premiere episode in the Trek franchise.
This so-called court should get down on its knees to what Starfleet is!
But it's rough. Every time I watch it, I wonder if they were using lower quality film to record it, or a lackluster camera, or if it's just that brownish yellow filter they have on while they're on the planet, but whatever it is, the video quality just looks inferior to me. Which is crazy when you find out that they spent $23 million to make this episode. Most of that was due to lots and lots of reshoots. Kate Mulgrew was not the first choice to play Janeway. At first, they had some French-Canadian actress, but if you ever hear her say her lines, you'll see why she couldn't last. She was way too polite. Kate Mulgrew hammers it home that she's in charge. The Canadian sounded like she felt like she was inconveniencing you to keep the ship from blowing up. Then, once Mulgrew did all the shots, they had to redo them again because her original hairstyle let the stage lights come through. Alright, there's one last thing I promised we'd come back to, and that's the driving point of conflict between the Kazon and the Ocampan and Voyager. That's the lack of water. For the next 2 seasons, we see the Kazons harassing Voyager. Assuming an average traveling speed of around warp 8, and assuming Voyager traveled from one end to the other of Kazon space, that means they have a territory spanning 1,700 light years. But water? Water is a thing that no one has? Our solar system alone has 23 sources of massive amounts of water. They're on ships that travel for months at a time through space, but they don't know how to reclaim water? We know how to reclaim water, and we're not even spacefaring. The Kazon were often described as primitive, sure, too primitive even for the Borg to assimilate, but at the same time, they're so powerful that Voyager struggles when they clash. And the Kazon are all disjointed tribes, but somehow they're also so joined together that they hate Voyager and attack them on sight? The Kazon just made no sense. Not having water made no sense. The Ocampa made no sense. Janeway choosing to strand her crew here, and Chakotay, the Maquis terrorist, immediately taking a subservient position because this was her ship, made no sense. Now, one thing I know some people have complained about is why Voyager didn't head for the wormhole in the Gamma Quadrant. I've heard a lot of good reasons, ranging from it was actually about the same distance, to quadrants are really, really big and they couldn't pinpoint the exact location of the wormhole, but they could head in approximately the right direction for Earth and make course corrections as required the closer they got. Personally, I think the issue was one of resources. Voyager traveled down one of the spiral arms of the Milky Way and just once had to go through some dead space between the arms. It was extremely dangerous on their resources and mental health. Heading for the Gamma Quadrant could have had them going over several of these dead spaces or at least one larger gap. Janeway went for the safer option, but I would have preferred them to state a reason in the show at some point instead of having us come up with a reason for them. Now, all things considered, I think the episode was acceptable, and it set the stage for a lot of solid episodes this season. Maybe I'll do a video someday where I go over these issues and show how the episode in first season would have been done if I ran a circus. But for today, that's going to be a wrap. I hope you're enjoying this as I kick off my deep delve into Voyager. If you can think of a better name for it, maybe something with some V's to get a nice alliteration, let me know in the comments below. Shoutouts to my supporters on Subscribestar and Patreon, which according to my notes is still just John DeMarco. If you like this and want to see more, you can join John by searching for Life with Matthew on Patreon or Subscribestar, or just click on the links in the description of these videos. Be sure to subscribe for more, and until the next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.